together. It means a lot to us as a team. We're all about community. All of us have been involved and demonstrated how much we have a passion for the community over the years, and that continues with Toolpath. So at the end of the presentation, there's some QR codes for providing feedback, for getting on board with a trial with Toolpath. And yeah, we want to hear from all of you and let us know what you expect from a tool like this to help you in your day to day. So yeah, so we can all shape this together. Uh, so we've got the a number of us on the call today. Ben and I are well, Ben's done most of the hard work. I'm doing the presentation, and he's up in Bedford, Ohio, in a machine shop, and I'm down the bottom of the planet in Christchurch, New Zealand. So we've got, yeah, like I mentioned before, just got a few other Toolpath staff on the webinar, so they'll be hanging out in the chat and the Q&A. So fire away if you've got any questions. Um, some of you may be new to Zoom. So down the bottom of the screen, there's a toolbar. You've got the chat, and then there's a separate Q&A panel to ask for like formally ask questions. If you do that, it'll be easy for us to keep track of everything. And there's if you know you can give us some love if you want. And towards the end, when we get to the Q&A and discussion section, if you want to be unmuted and have a chat with us, then just raise your hand and we can have a go at unmuting you. So just quickly run through the agenda. We're going to give you a backstory to this, how we came across this part, a quick fire demo about that part itself, and then a summary of what you saw. We've got a two-question poll, and I'm going to share some resources as well. And then Ben's going to get into his part, showing the live machining, talking through the results. I've got a couple of slides for recent product updates this month, quality of life improvements, and future tips and tricks, and then we'll open it up for Q&A and an open discussion. So backstory, I was exploring Reddit. I haven't been on Reddit much in the past, and so yeah, exploring it from the perspective of Toolpath. Came across the CNC subreddit and stumbled across this part and question, and it was a great conversation happening in the thread. And I brought this up with the team, and our CTO Justin suggested why don't we just machine it for him? And so here we are. Michael's actually going to come up to the shop in a few weeks' time and machine one of these himself. So keep an eye out for some content around that. And it's been a great little part to run through Toolpath. So it's a bracket for an additional monitor for his camera rig. All right. So typically, just kind of a bit of role playing here. When a machine shop receives a part for RFQ, a number of questions get asked. How big is it? What tools do I have now? Do I need any extra tools? Which ones are going to fit? Which ones won't? Do I have the capabilities in my tooling to machine the features that are required? And how long is it going to take? And all those kinds of questions. So. Um, I've got an email here from Michael. So with an attachment. So I'm just going to forward this on to our uploads at toolpath.com email. And then I download the part. Typically or traditionally, would then go and have a look in my CAD CAM software of choice, bring that in, and start. No, I don't want to upload. I just want to open. And start measuring the part to get a sense of scale. So I've got this isn't in meters for some reason at the moment, so I'll switch that over to inches so it makes sense. I'm curious that, at the width of this particular feature here. So we'd measure that and okay, it's 125,000, it's pretty tight. That's going to be fiddly to make. Then you'd need to go into the manufacturing workspace and have a look in the tooling library, figure out what tools you've got to fit that particular part, which ones are in the machine, which ones are in your shop, if you need to buy anything. There's a lot of thought that needs to go into figuring out how to manufacture this part. Or now you can just import it into Toolpath and use that instead. So As a result of uploading the part or forwarding the email on, the server's responded, giving us a link through to a report to use, and we can start to have a look. So straight away we've got some feedback. There's some machinability issues here. We can turn on banana for scale and get a sense that this is actually quite a small part. Um, and it's given us a tool recommendation. So if we explore some of this, we can see that there's some accessibility issues that's going to be fixed with this tool. So wall 1 is going to be fixed. So what we'll do here now is accept the recommendation of the tool. I'm just going to check to see which setup we're doing first. So I'll just go home. Okay, so we're doing this setup first, flipping it over, and then dealing with this feature in the third op. So we've only got 3 setups, that's fine. But machining this feature last could be quite tricky because it's effectively hanging in midair at this point because we've removed all the material through here. So we might get quite a poor finish on here, and you know the finish matters on this part. So you know what, I'll just change that, and the first setup I can specify manually rather than the automatic one. So I'm going to pick current setup 3 as my first setup. I've accepted that tool and I'm going to regenerate. So that will take like a minute or so to regen. I've got one here that's already regenerated, so I'll just review the results here. There's still a machinability issue here, and it's just because we don't have the correct drill diameter, a drill of the correct diameter to make this hole. So we'll deal with that in Fusion later. I'm happy enough with that. We've got the 4 setups here. First setup, flipping it over. Okay, so we're machining this face. It's all good. And then we get into the main features of the part. So let's have a look and see what we've got here in Fusion. I've copied the key. I can download this into our add-in now. By early next week, I think, you won't need to do this copy and paste anymore. We'll be updating this add-in so that that happens automatically. I click OK and then wait for the magic to happen. So now it's bringing in the model. It's building all the setups as per the part report, and then creating all of the toolpaths within each of those setups. It's been nervously await. There we go. I won't go through this in too much detail because Ben's going to review it himself shortly, but um, yeah, we can see it's roughing everything out. I'll just turn on my in-process stock. You can see it's gradually removing the material, finishing the job. We get into setup 2, um, 3, and 4. So very quickly, we've ended up with a set of toolpaths that are workable. As we can see here, there's some issues that we need to fix up and tidy up. So still very much programmer in the loop. Got to verify all of this stuff, simulate, and then we'll be able to post-process. So back to my slides here. And just to give you a summary of what we've just seen, what's happened is in the background in Toolpath, we've got our tool library for our Brother Speedio uploaded, the tools available in our shop, and as an additional library for vendors we buy tools from. And so it'll prioritize picking tools from the machine library and then cascade down to the others. It matches those tools up to the various features it detects on the part that we've given Toolpath, and it plays a game and scores all the different solutions that it finds for manufacturing the individual features, combines all of that together into an overall strategy, and gives us a report. And so you get the design for machining, I like to refer to it as, report. So so you can see which features are machinable, which ones need work. Then you get a tool list, and then on the strategy tab, you have a list of operations, which is like a setup sheet for programmers. Historically, machinists are the ones that get setup sheets. Now with Toolpath, programmers get setup sheets if they need them. And then on the last tab, we end up with an estimate with a breakdown of cost for based on runtime and total monetary cost for each individual feature. If there's a feature that's particularly expensive, you can now justify that easily and point that out to your customer, or go back to engineering and design and see whether there's a way to reduce the cost of the part. If you're using Autodesk Fusion, then the cherry on top is you can output all of that through to Fusion and get all of the setups and toolpaths as you saw just before. All right, so we've got a quick poll that we can fire up if you want to get that going, Ben.
Yep, I just launched it.
Thanks. And so while that's running, I'll just have a chat about the resources we've got available. So we'll send out the recording to everyone who registered for this webinar. So everyone will get that. We'll also share though all of our webinars to our YouTube channel. We've got the Chips and Tips podcast, where we interview customers and other experts in the industry and just have good chats about machining and CAM and CAD and anything related peripherally to machining. Um, there's a lot of other like learning content, kind of informal learning content on there as well, some long form content. And so the webinars get posted there too. And then finally, support.toolpath.com, we've got more of our formal learning content. And the great place to start there is Learn Toolpath in 20 minutes. How's the poll going, Ben?
Looks great. You want me to end it and share results?
If you think it's ready to go, then yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think so. All right, let's end it. Take a look at these results. I'll go through them quick. It looks like what's your toolpath level is our first question. And we have a lot of people that just signed up and are curious to learn more. So you're in the right spot. We built this webinar so you guys understand what toolpath is, what we're all about, and how it performs currently, right? And that's why we're doing the live machining demo and kind of picking apart some of the CAM automation stuff. What's your preferred CAM software? Looks like we've got a big majority, 69% of Autodesk Fusion, which is great. We take our toolpath and our operations and output that to Fusion right now, so that works out great. And then we've got some Mastercam people in here too. So yeah, looks like a good group of people.
Well, cheers, Ben. All right, so when I don't think this is relevant anymore, is it, Ben? No, you've changed to the OBS stream, but if you need to, there's just keep an eye on the tabs at the top if you need to switch between them, and you can change as Ben's screen sharing his Fusion screen to talk through the cam. We'll have the live machining running at the same time. You can change the width of the distribution of size with the slider in the middle of the screen there, highlighted by number 4. So
Awesome.
let you take it away, Ben.
Yeah, I'm ready. All right, I'm going to share my screen. I got to kick Scott out of here. All right. Cool. So I've got Fusion on the right and Toolpath on the left. So one thing, I had to actually machine the part. So one thing I had to do was take the part. I did use Toolpath. We have a preview feature right now where we can drop our part in with our work holding. And in our Speedio behind me, we're in our shop. I'm in my shop, in the shop in Ohio. We're just in IR. And we have these vices that are self-centering. And then that's going to be our op one. And then just real quickly, kind of going through the additional ops, I created a soft jaw that actually holds this part 3 different ways. So I can kind of attack the 3 setups in one jaw. So this is the setup that I did in Toolpath or in Fusion. And I wanted to tell Toolpath, hey, program this part with respect to my fixturing and everything. So what I did was I clicked this send part to Toolpath, and I can either tell it to generate automatically or use my existing setups. So we're going to do that. And I have these 4 setups. So when I click OK, we'll see over here on the left-hand side that Toolpath is now looking at this part relative to how it was in Fusion, right? So we'll let that generate. In fact, I actually have a preloaded one. It goes pretty quick, but and then I can click export to Fusion, right? So this all looks good. We have our 4 setups, just like this. Okay, and we can even see the tools that are going to be used as well. It's using the tool recommended Harvey, that 100 thou end mill. And so now all I have to do is jump back into Fusion and import the program. And we do have another preview feature that we're working on, which lets us import all of the CAM operations into the same document. And this, I think, is pretty magical. So if I select import to current document and click OK, we're going to see all of those existing setups be populated by the CAM automation from Toolpath. And so we're going to give those just a few seconds to load. And we're trying to be as transparent as possible. Is AI going to take over your job as a programmer or machinist? No, I don't think so. But what we want to do is we want to use AI and machine learning to just make ourselves, better machinists, better programmers, and help accelerate what we're doing already. So I am going to go through this program, but I've already machined this part, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to show you guys, getting it set up on the machine. So let me really quick spotlight this for everybody, and we'll get the part loaded up and running here. So we'll go pretty quick. If you guys have any questions, of course, feel free to use the chat or Q&A. All right, here we go. And then right before I run, I'm going to mute my audio and then unmute the audio kind of in the shop so you can hear the machine run for like 10 seconds. All right, so we've got the part running on the machine right now, and I'm going to go through some of the CAM automation from Toolpath. So let me jump back into my screen share. And let's just take a look at some of these toolpaths and where we need to fix a few things. So just looking at the setup one, right? So we've got it in our vise here. We're running a 2D adaptive. And one really nice thing about Toolpath is, even though it's taking all the toolpaths and the operations and dumping them over to Fusion, they're fully editable after. So if I click into this, I can see that for our feeds and speeds, Toolpath is selecting our adaptive rough preset. So it's using our feeds and speeds that we've dialed in for our machine. So that's excellent. It understands the geometry. So that's just one thing I wanted to show. So then we're doing a facing operation. You're like, why are we facing with an end mill? Well, we have a 30 taper machine, and I just like to face with an end mill. If it doesn't matter about surface finish, I mean, you can get a pretty good surface finish with this, of course, but we've got a nice face pass there. Then we do some finishing. We're going to use that tool recommended, or that recommended tool to do that hole. So we're going to bore that out. And then we're using a scallop here for the 3D surfacing. And right now, Toolpath's just going to default to mostly scallop 3D finishing. And for the most part, that's excellent. If you want to change it, you can do a quick create a derived operation and use any of these other 3D toolpaths. All right, let's see what happened here. So tool 9, toolpath is empty. So right now, that's just a selection issue. And so if I click none as a boundary, we're trying to kind of over constrain where the tool's allowed to go to machine that open pocket. So if I click none, we let it kind of cut, outside the boundary of that part. So that looks great. And we do a little finishing pass here with our 1/8" end mill. And of course, we do some jampers. I need to quickly regenerate these. All right. So now we have it set up in our op2 or our setup 2 with our soft draws. And another nice thing too is it's respecting my fixturing. So because we were able to drop in the toolpaths into the existing document, um, it's being very careful to avoid my fixture. So it's smart in that regard. So we do a 3D machining there, take the top hat off, do some surfacing, or sorry, face finish pass. And then again, we just do that scallop to finish up that part right there. Um, and then setup 3. And let me, there we go back to setup 3. Now, setup 3 is kind of interesting because we're using that recommended tool to get inside of this small um, slot. So we're using first a 1/4 inch end mill to do those bores. Those look great. If I click into it, I can see Toolpath is using my bore rough preset. So it's going to be a little bit more aggressive than a finishing one. And one thing where Toolpath does not do well, and this is actually something that just recently came up, but of course we want to be transparent with you guys, is I actually want to use this tool 5. And if I regenerate it, you'll see that tool 5 is actually being used as the larger tool to remove as much material as possible. And then that tool 9, which is our smaller 100 thou mill, comes in and finishes out um, the rest of the geometry. So you're definitely going to want to check your operations and your tool paths. But it did do all the selections, and I had to just kind of flip those operations around. Would it have worked? Probably. It would have just been a lot longer of a cycle time. So then we use the 100 thou mill to do the finish contours. And the only thing it's mad about here is just our max step down, which of course I can change. It's mad mainly because uh, this end mill is not necked, so it thinks that it's colliding with the shaft on the end mill. Then we do a finish operation on that bore. You can see the lead in, lead out, kind of coming right off of there. And then our chamfers. And then the last little part here, um, let me just quickly regenerate. We use our smaller 1/8 inch end mill to open up these bores here. And then our tiny 16th inch end mill. Looks like we're doing some air cutting. So of course we could optimize that to start a little bit closer to the finished height of the part. And we have an issue here with our chamfers because our tip offset is a little goofy here. So if I make it a little bit smaller, we're able to get down inside of all of those
The
holes.
other op the other option on that particular one there was just to change the length of the lead-in on the last tab.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so it was just the lead-in that was stopping it from generating on those. You could go to a small, a deeper depth if you wanted to with a shorter lead-in.
Oh okay. Yeah. Excellent. So anyway, that's the tool paths that were pushed out of our software, and of course we had the ability to edit them. But for this part, it definitely got me a lot further than where I would have kind of started just from scratch. So um, looks like I got to go change some parts on the machine. We've got a couple more ops to get done, and I'll send it back to you, Scott.
Cheers, Ben. All right, I'll get my screen share going again. All right, so we're pushing out updates and bug fixes every week. So in July, some of the kind of notable improvements as you just saw before is the option to turn on current document import in our Fusion add-in. So if any of you are interested in giving that a go, let us know. Just email support at toolpath.com and we'll tell you where to go and change the setting so that you can give that a go. Um, it is a preview feature, so it won't be perfect, but yeah, I'd be interested in getting feedback from you guys on using it. Um, all of the tool libraries in all of the tool libraries you upload into Toolpath are now editable. So if you needed to do make any small tweaks or changes on the fly, then you can jump in and adjust tool geometry, adjust the speeds and feeds of presets on your tools. All of that stuff you can now do in Toolpath. So, there's a lot of work to be done on there to improve that further still. But it's really nice work from the team to have the ability to do all that stuff in there now. And then this week we've just dropped the ability to, if you upload a multi-body part to Toolpath, it will display the individual bodies, and you can now specify one of them as stock. So you get to use custom stock models now, which is huge. Some quality of life updates. So machine ability issue grouping. We used to create one big long flat list. Now we'll group similar accessibility issues into just like an accordion you can collapse and open up, saving some space on your screen, just making it easier to navigate through the things that need fixing. Orbiting freedom. I'm personally stoked about this one. I'm not a fan of constrained orbit, so I was really happy to see when the team added free orbit and the ability to set that in your preferences. And then we've now got the ability to filter and search. And the filters you can do multiple conditions. Um, so you can quickly collapse down the tools that you want to focus on for editing or applying presets to. Right, so three tips. So when you go through the your part report on the strategy tab, you can expand out the individual operations. When you do that, you get to see the preset that's been applied to that toolpath, along with the feeds and speeds and feeds that are part of that preset. So if you wanted to check them and adjust them, you can then go to the tool in the tool library now, find the preset and adjust whatever it is you need, save it, regen the report, and it will apply those new speeds and feeds to the program. Again, there's a lot more to come on that. It's just the start. I really like this particular feature on the toolbar, and it's called mouse over. So when you enable that, you get to mouse around over the model, and it will highlight all of the individual feature groups, and you get a little bit of a tooltip that pops up, gives you some information, the name of the feature, which setup it's in. If you actually then click it, it will then display a bunch of information about that feature in the panel on the right hand side. So a super handy one to get familiar with. And then on the estimate tab, it's not super discoverable, this one, but it's a nice little add. If you expand out, so all of the um, so per setup, you get a list of all the features. If you feature groups, if you expand out the feature group, you'll then see all the individual features of that class within that group. You can click on that user interface element, and it will display some additional information on the right hand side about that feature. You get to see the roughing and finishing tool being applied to it, as well as the machine time and some of the speeds and feeds. So yeah, if any of you want to kick off a free trial and you haven't done so far, then you can use the QR code on the left. We've got a QR code for the support page. If any of you who've used Toolpath so far or have got any ideas about what you'd like to see in Toolpath, even if you haven't used it yet, then you can scan the QR code, the third QR code along, and it'll take you to a feedback form. The one on the right is a quick link through to our YouTube channel to give it a subscribe. Um, I'm gonna just shoot back to that initial report a second and show some extra stuff. So we had a question. Can you see that okay,
Yep, we
Ben?
see.
Yeah, cool. All right. Because I never actually talked through this when I did the initial demo. So somebody asked why it changed from 3 to 4 setups. Now, We actually wanted four setups. So we started off when we started thinking about manufacturing this product that three setups was the way to go. Just through some conversation, Ben and I realized it was actually we're better off doing four. And Ben did a great job with the soft jaws, just having one set of jaws to be able to machine all four orientations of the part in one soft jaw. So that was brilliant. Now, the reason why it did three setups to begin with is because it removed most of the material from this orientation and this orientation first, and in doing so, it machined using the side of the tool this kind of rounded end of the part all in one pass. So it identified these faces here as being part of a profile feature. Now, when we flip it this way around and do this first, it will then go through and do as much of the machining from this orientation first, which means finishing this face here and with a 3D surface. So it then categorizes this face as a contour surface feature rather than a profile feature, which then means to finish the feature off completely, you have to 3D contour it from this side. So that's why you end up with four setups when we add the additional tool and specify this as the first orientation. So yeah, we've got the setup view here. This is working through the user interface. In each setup, you get a breakdown of all of the features. You can drill into the features and check, more information about them. Um, then we end up with our tool list on the next tab. Um, and our strategy tab gives us what is effectively a setup sheet for programmers. This is one of my favorite features of Toolpath is that you get this visualization of the surfaces we've extracted to actually build out those features. And for roughing, we create this composite feature of multiple features. So these are more like manufacturing surfaces rather than the engineered design surfaces. All of these operations are numbered, and you see that carry through into Fusion. So when you want to inspect what we've done, you could say, like, okay, setup one, operation number four, setup one, operation number four, and if you're troubleshooting or anything like that, then this gives you a really easy way to match up what's being generated in Fusion with what you see in Toolpath. And then yeah, lastly, we've got the estimate tab, and so this is using the estimate preset that was specified in the July 30th cut config. So you can choose a different preset if we want for this particular estimate, and then override any of the values in here to customize it for the estimate for this particular part for your customer. Yeah, I think that's about it. So if we open it up for Q&A, we can run through anything anyone needs.
Nice job, Scott. I saw a question about stock from body, and where was it? Christopher said, any plans to allow override of stock in Toolpath? Yeah, we did just come out with what we call a custom stock. But one really quick tip, and I'll just share my screen that I use a lot. That's maybe not the most obvious or discoverable. Is when we let's just take this part for instance again, and we just import it into Toolpath or into Fusion. And I'm just going to use the import work holding so you guys can kind of see that happen in real time. What we do is we create a parametric stock, which is super nice. So you can quickly go into your change parameters, and you can update if it's just like a simple rectangular prismatic stock. You can update it here. You can even set the oversized top, so where the part actually sits relative to the stock itself. So that's like a nice thing to know. Now, if you're trying to do unique, which I think we might even have some. Now we're going off script.
So
This guy right here.
I think the question might have been, when can I, right here on your screen where you see the dimensions of stock, I just want to edit those. There's not set the time when we're going to do it yet, but yes, we will make that editable on the Toolpath side too. It's not
Yeah.
in a sprint, but it's planned work.
So right now, if you wanted to do it from there, you'd go and create another stock preset and apply that to your cut config and then regen from there.
Yeah.
Right.
And yep. Cool.
Or
Oh, it
not,
looks like my part's done. Let's go
not to
see what it looks
throw.
like.
Let's have a look at it.
Sorry to throw one more stock option at everybody, but when I want to force, I said it in the comment, but when I want to force a very specific stock setup or WCS setup or stock, I just do it in Fusion and then send it over from Fusion. It's probably the most friction-free way to do that, right?
Yeah, so if we wanted to model custom stock around this, we could do that. Just create an offset plane off the bottom here. I'll just model some random size stock.
Don't correct me if
There's three ways to get Toolpath or programs into Toolpath. So the email method I showed at the beginning, and then the send part to Toolpath, which I'll show you now. So I'll just go to from solid, and we'll pick up that's what I want there. Make sure I've got my actual model selected. And yeah, I'll probably change my X axis orientation. Oh,
while you're defining that stock, there's a question from Kevin Lee about if you defined your fixtures here, does Toolpath use them? Justin answered it in the chat, but no, we don't yet. It's something we know we need to, but we don't yet.
yeah. So this will be a double whammy tip here if you wanted to force one setup as well. Because if you're just doing some plate work, then you can do that from Fusion. And then you just send part to Toolpath, use existing setups, there's only one, and push that through, and then it will use the stock. So that's the second way of importing stuff into Toolpath, and then the other way is to either upload or drag and drop from here and just import one or many files. It's worth pointing out as well with the email method, if you've got multiple files attached of various different types, we'll process that automatically. So if there's a range of different CAD file formats, it will generate a report for each one and then filter out any non-supported files automatically. So if there's PDFs or Word documents or whatever attached, it will just drop those attachments. So it's pretty convenient in that regard. And yeah, so then on the library side of things, at the moment we've got this stock settings. I believe this is all going to get updated soon as well, but for now we've just got the rectangular stock in here. You'd set up really one of these per work holding type. So because you've got your grip stock down here, and possibly you have variations for different types of stock, so plate and bar and all the rest of it. So once you've got a library of these stock settings, you can then apply them in different ways to your cut config. So you might have one cut config that uses the webinar cam stock and another one that uses the Kurt stop jaws and so on and so forth.
Justin, the CTO, he's been on the chat answering a lot of the questions. Maybe we just scan and see if there's others.
How you getting on with the part, Ben?
Yeah, I don't see any others that didn't get answered live.
Kevin's got a question at the beginning of the webinar in the email workflow, which I personally love. But Kevin, yeah, when you forward the files of an email, it looks at the account it came from and attaches it to your Toolpath account. It will automatically process the part and run it through the whole thing, including generating the estimate. So you get that email when it's done. Scott, I don't know if you want to pull up the estimate page. We didn't focus it on this webinar, but the entire toolpath pipeline runs as soon as it gets the email. Kevin's my friend too. Kevin and I were apprentice machinists together in Canada way back in the day.
Yeah, so you per user, so you can have multiple users in your team, and each user's got an individual set of defaults. And so I've got this particular cut config set as the default. So when I forwarded the email on, it created this project and gave it the same name as the subject line of the email. So that's something you could manipulate before you forward as well, is to adjust the subject line and put in whatever you want, the customer number or something like that. And then it will add all of the files, CAD files that it can find associated, attached to that email and associate it to that project and just list them out in here.
A couple questions again that Justin is doing a great job, but uploads at toolpath.com from the email address that has the Toolpath account. That's the first piece. And then it just uses your default cut config, no magic to try and scan the material and pick a cut config, but you can imagine us doing that at some point.
So yeah, we could switch out these different estimate presets. It will change the values in here. And then you can just override them to suit whatever it is that you want to do for this particular job. So the first setup might be cheaper because in our case, it's just a set of soft jaws that we're just flipping the part around in. So there's very little additional setup there that we may or may not want to charge for. We can adjust our cost for the weight of the material. Now you can go fixed cost or auto. And then you can add additional line items in here as well. So if you wanted to add in like soft jaw stock cost, you can do
This
that.
this workflow is designed to be super fast. You show up, you've got an email from a customer with a bunch of parts in it. Just forward it to Toolpath, let it pre-process everything. You'll get an email when it's done, and you can make some modifications, but at least it was a starting point.
Yeah, so Michael wanted a one-off, so it's just quantity one. Can apply a discount. And
We
yeah, gives us the price.
Mike, we don't rip a zip file apart right now. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Ben, that's a cool idea. So you're saying email Toolpaths with some instructions of how to process it? A lot of good ideas coming through on this webinar. But it's Saunders. Interestingly enough, the one CAD format that's not supported in the email workflows in F3D. We support all the standard Exchange formats, but Autodesk doesn't like to think about Fusion as files. Kevin Lee wants a customer portal. No, there's no customer portal now. It's too funny. I asked the team to do a webinar focused on the machining, and all the questions are focused on estimating. But I guess that's because that's not what you covered.
So can you do that part finish, Ben?
Yeah, I got too excited and forgot to do the fourth setup. So there we go. That's the finished part.
Very,
I don't know
very
if
cool.
that's showing off very well, but yeah, not too bad. Not too
All
shabby.
right, looks good.
Show us the sides that we surfaced. That was an interesting one for me to understand as Justin, the smart guys, explained it to me.
Here.
For the AI to do though, because we look at that as a machinist and say that it's a profile, that radius, and we ended up surfacing it in two setups because of how we attacked it. And that is something Toolpath is unique at, is understanding that many features can be different types of features depending on the direction you attack it from. And that's part of what goes into the optimization, but also part of what we need to build an experience for to allow you to guide the AI in the way you want it to look at a particular feature. You'll see UI coming out that Pete's been working on to help us create an experience that helps you kind of tell the system, yeah, I know it could have been a profile, but I kind of want it to be a surface. Now,
We
Justin's
do have to we do have to cheat a little bit on this part. Toolpath can't currently split up a single surface like that. If you look at the part, you'll see that there's a very, very small flat on the end of there, and that's specifically added to create two separate surfaces. I actually don't know if we added that flat or if that was in the original model.
I think it was in the
But
original model.
okay, so we got a little
Yeah.
lucky there, but just so everybody's aware, right now Toolpath doesn't have the ability to split up 3D surfaces like with a water line and blend them together.
Hey Scott, is there any way you could show your screen and show the little flat that Justin's talking about? I knowing that design parts kind of with this, and it does help if this is my intent.
Yeah, so it was because I originally tried to model this from the image in the Reddit thread, in the Reddit post, and so I couldn't tell from just the original screen sh share that there was a flat here, and so I modeled it as a full round. But Michael's original model actually had a flat here, and so it's got two faces. And so what Justin's talking about there is if we if I'll try and do it. Let's see if I can just use the delete face in here to get square corner, and then fill it this as a full round. This might still end up
Fusion's not going to give you a full round anyway, so you're okay.
So we've got.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll let you model and I'll answer a couple of questions I see because somebody called me out. Chris called me out on does Toolpath do REST machining? It's actually interesting. There's two parts to that question. First is the interesting part about how Toolpath works. So the first thing the system does is find the terminal tools. That's the tools required to finish the geometry. And then it does its optimization. So it actually works backwards. It does the smallest tool first, and then it layers in bigger tools to make the part more efficient. But yes, you can use it. It'll use a larger tool to remove a bunch of material and then finish with a smaller one. And then when you look inside of Fusion, we will use REST machining when we post-process to Fusion for the tool paths. I hope I answered that well. If Justin wants to cut me off until I'm wrong, then that's okay. Chris can direct his questions to Justin in the future. 3+2 is a fun one. We want to get to it. We ought to finish up the 2.5 and 3 axis first. But to me, the big problem is we need to be able to include fixturing and work holding. Part of what the optimization is doing is making sure the tool doesn't crash into the part to say it fits. If it's 3+2, then it needs to make sure we're really thinking about the work holding. So that's a big part of that.
See what it does.
Everybody enough time? I mean, Justin already told us what it's going to do. So. Kevin Lee's got some questions about how it handles holes. There's a couple answers to that. This part might have been a good one. One of them, you need to define the hole so you can tell it if it's a thread or something. We just added some functionality to apply a tolerance to drilled holes. So you might say a hole that's 252 thou or 248 thou still use a 1/4 inch drill. So there's some tolerance applied to drilling that we just added.
So that black surface there that says no solution, it's because given the 4 setups, there's no one setup that it can handle like 3-axis style. It can't reach that entire surface in any one setup. That's why it's black, and that's caused because there was no little flat there. We have to modify the AI to have the ability to do the kind of waterline splitting that would be necessary to surface that continuously. Or rather in 2 setups. I guess when I say continuously, I mean in 2 setups.
Right, mostly
Oh,
because we're
with a blend.
machining features, right? So there's nothing stopping us now from taking that and bringing it into um, Fusion and then using the kind of model-based approach to toolpath that. So it just depends on what you want to do, really. Bring that down. It'll still bring in all the other toolpaths, and then you can just program that however you want. So we could do a
Christopher,
2D
regarding
contour.
the, real quick,
Hey,
so Christopher, regarding the part that you were working with, where you expected REST machine to work differently, feel free to reach out to our customer team to help work through any problems like that. I've been testing REST machining a lot lately, and thanks, Al. And it's I would say in the last couple weeks specifically, it's gotten pretty good.
yeah. So I mean, even here, you don't have a clean boundary to select because there's no split face there, so you can't easily use a toolpath like Scallop um, to contain it.
Trevor's got a question about roadmap. I'll kind of speak at a high level. Today we still say if you go to Toolpath, we still say it's beta to export the toolpaths. We think it's very important to under promise and over deliver. There's some others in this space that have done the opposite, and we don't think that's right. But we do feel we're getting very close to being confidently giving sensible results, even if they're not perfect, but 80% right and sensible. So a big focus is making sure we're getting sensible results out of the AI. Early on, you could start in a document and come back to the Fusion document. That added some extra technical challenges while we were trying to make sure the system gave good results. So we took that functionality away. We're bringing that back. You'll have it very soon. So if you're starting in a Fusion document with some toolpaths and setups in it, and you don't want to create a new one, we want to bring it back into the same document. It's pretty useful when you've got soft jaws or something. So you'll see that in the near term. And then the other near term thing is kind of two buckets of things. We want to converge the idea of the cut config and the role in the tool library and make it easier to understand what you're allowing a tool to do. Uh, Along that lines or similar lines is giving you the ability inside of Toolpath to guide the AI more than you can. And when we think about how you work with an AI CAM system, it's may, must, and mustn't. You may use these tools, you must not do this, or you may not do the other thing. But right now, the Toolpath just kind of does, it has free reign on everything. You can't force it to do anything. So you'll see us do more controls like Scott did, where he said he forced the first setup, but I want to force this feature into setup too. Um, that kind of thing is the near term stuff. Pete, maybe I bought you enough time to add more to that, or Justin, feel free.
I mean, I think you summarized that pretty well. Right now, we're really wanting to have laser focus on that core CAM automation workflow. I think that's really the most important part at the end of the day. Is how do we be super useful at the root of what we're doing. There's a lot of really great, really cool workflow ideas. I think a lot of ones that we've come up with and have been proposed in the chat here today that are easy to get like, oh man, like we should, choose the cut config based on like somebody should be able to write a note and we run it through an LLM and in the email forward thing. Like there's a lot of really great ideas we're very excited about. At the core of it, we're trying to focus very heavily on our CAM automation workflow, making sure that's solid, and then sort of building out the workflow pieces around that so that the whole system, if you're having to if you're having to really handhold the automation to an unreasonable extent throughout the whole process, it can become a hindrance. If it's very solid and it's letting, automation speed up your process, and then the human comes in the loop, like Ben showed earlier, where, you really put your superpowers to work there and it helps with everything else. I think that's the sweet spot that we want to hit.
Yeah. Do it, Trevor. Get out and machine some parts.
You're gonna make me jealous, Trevor. I want to too. Joining the webinar gets me pretty close to that though.
Just elbow David out of the way and get on that DMU.
Scott started with that slide. Maybe that's a good way to wrap. We said we want to define the future of AI for CNC together. I hope it's obvious that we're demonstrating that. We believe that. So please share the feedback. If it's a good idea, we have to say no to just to focus. We need to earn the right to do some of the fun things. The system has to work, and we're still earning that right. But give us the good ideas of how we can make it all better. We'd love to hear them.
It would be great to see you running some parts through your house, Kev. I think Tim's definitely experienced the joy when it's all just worked nicely. And like it blows you away when it works. Like there's a part the other day that I put through it and it was like 98% programmed. I was just like crikey, I couldn't believe how good it was. And then yeah, other times you just got to put in some extra work.
Can't load my own tools these days, but I got Carol out in the garage making parts. We just made this guy the other day. That was kind of fun. I was surprised just how, you go back 25 years of my career, these kind of surfaces were not trivial. So there's a bunch of little features. It's not that impressive of a part, but it's pretty fun to watch, Toolpath, how well it does. So
The more fun one for me is looking at a part saying Toolpath did it wrong, and then diving in with the tech team and finding out that it actually was a pretty reasonable approach at how it did it. Just
Yeah,
so
that's all right.
I like it when it just gets it good.
I did post another poll for those of you that want a little bit to give us a little bit of feedback. So we want to hear from you what features would be most useful next. Otherwise, I think we'll call it quits here. Thanks for an amazing webinar, and Scott, thanks for taking us through Toolpath, and yeah, appreciate it.
No worries. I'll just pull up the slides again one last time so that if anyone wants to capture those QR codes, they can. And yeah, thanks everyone for your time. It's been fun going through this real part from the interweb. We'll do some more of that. So if anyone's got any parts that they want to see run through Toolpath and presented in a webinar like this, then please send them through. All right. Send it.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
See you later.
thank you.
Bye.
Nice work, Ben.
See you guys.